My husband teaches us how to do nice things.
Just anything.
A little humor.
Get your story out.
Hi. That's my voice. I'm a 38-year-old man. There's a reason I sound like this, so I'm going to come out to you guys. You're like, you don't have to. I'm from Texas. That's true. Also, my mother is a Republican judge. Yeah, I don't have a joke about that. Just think you should know. I'm glad we've discovered that there are no children in this room, or anyone even children adjacent, I guess. Like no one even knows a child. Because that being said, I think I'm gonna go ahead and just tell you guys the story of how I lost my virginity. I am from Texas, that's true. When I was 14, I came out as a lesbian. I said, Mom, I'm a lesbian. And my mom said, but you're pretty. You don't have to be a lesbian. And I said, but I want to be. And she said, okay. And my mother started letting my girlfriend stay the night. And my brother was pissed. So one day we were sitting having a nice Texas dinner, like steak, potatoes, my mom's hair touching the ceiling. My brother goes, Mom, how come her girlfriend gets to stay the night and mine doesn't? And my mom just goes, 'cause she can't get her pregnant. At that moment on, I knew I was safe, so I just started having sex with as many girls as I could. Like all of them. I'm not bragging. I'm bragging. It was a lot of them. I was a gold star lesbian. If you don't know what that is, it's a big deal. It's awesome. I was having a hell of a time, but in reality, I was absolutely just depressed. I was completely miserable. And it wasn't until I saw my first ever trans man that I knew that that's what it was. In that moment, I was like, this is it. I'm a man. So I came out to my best friend, and he said, I don't want to look at you. So I went back in the closet for 5 years until I was ready to kill myself. And at that moment, I said there was two options. Either I'm not going to be here anymore, or I'm going to come out. And so I went to my mother, and I said, Mom, I'm going to be Jeffrey now. And she said, absolutely not. I will never have a son named Jeffrey. You will be Jason or Brent. I was like, I'm going to be Jeffrey. She goes, no, the mom gets to pick the name. I was like, no, you screwed it up the first time. So here's the thing. In Texas at that time, you couldn't get on testosterone unless you had been in therapy for 2 full years about gender therapy. And I was like, I can't wait that long. I've already waited 5 years. So I found out that in New York, you could do it in 2 weeks. So immediately I moved to New York. Within 2 weeks, I got my first shot of testosterone. And I will never forget that feeling. I took that needle and I stuck it in my leg. And I just was filled with so much joy. And I just thought, this is it. I'm a man. I'm a straight man. I'm a straight white man. I can do anything. And that lasted 2 weeks. Because one thing we didn't know back then that we know now is about 50% of the time, if you start hormones, you switch sexualities. And I didn't know that. So all of a sudden, I was a gold star lesbian who had never been with a man, and I had a crush on my best friend. And that was scary to me, so what I did was I ran. I couldn't deal with it. There's no way I could handle this. So I took off. I got a job. This is true. I got a job selling knives. I was like a pitch man. You know Billy Mays? I did that. I was like the sham wow guy. And they would, this is so true. They would move me to a different city every 2 months. And I figured I would move so much I wouldn't have to have this catch up with me. And I don't have to deal with the fact that I don't know what I'm doing with men. Eventually, I ended up all the way back in Texas. And I would come home, and I was so lonely. And I thought the only way for me to fix this is for me to lose my virginity. Because while I had had sex with so many women, I had never had sex the way Jesus might have wanted. So what I did was I went to the only place back in 2007 that I knew transgender people were. And that is, I put a post on Craigslist. And I put, trans man here, just want to have some fun. And I got a bunch of responses. But I got one response that used full sentences. And I was like, jackpot. And I said, hey mate, Aussie here. I'd love to hang out. And I said, here's my address. I know. He gets there, I open the door, I see him. This man looks like Jason Statham. He is bald, he is ripped, he is so Australian. This must be a dream. But it's not. He comes in. Now, I'm so nervous. I had bought 2 bottles of wine, and before he got there, I drank a whole one. Then when he sat down, I said, would you like some wine? He said, I don't drink. So I drank the whole other bottle of wine. He sits down, and as he sits down, I look at him, I kiss him immediately. Then I say, will you take my virginity? He says, yes, like a gentleman. Eventually, I go, I guess I should know your name. He tells me his name, it is Gary. Adorable, I guess. At that point, I say, do you have a condom, Gary? And he says, no. And at that point, I go, oh, crap. I didn't know I was supposed to have one. I've never done this before. But what I do remember, for all of you gays in the room here, I had a pride bag. You know, if you don't know what a pride bag is, it's when you come home from the pride parade and you've got this giant sack of like condoms and lube. They're like mini packets and singular condoms that are horrible. And I opened it up, but at the time I was a lesbian. So all I found was female condoms. And if you don't know what a female condom is, it's not supposed to go on the dude. But I did put it on the dude. So it just looked like a cucumber from Ralph's. Just like a sad bag. And that's the last thing I remember before I blacked out. And in the morning I woke up and I was covered in a blanket. And it felt like I was fine. I looked on the side table and my wallet was sitting right there. I went to the door and it was locked. I didn't know what happened, but I knew I probably messed up. And then I got a text message, and it was Gary, and he said, that was really fun. Sorry you passed out before we got to do anything. Let me know if you want to hang out. And I said, address, question mark? And he said, now, question mark? And I said, yes. Question mark? And I immediately drove to his house. And in full daylight and absolutely sober, I said, take my virginity. He had a condom, and he did. He was so sweet. He was so gentle and kind. And it was absolutely lovely. And as I was laying there afterwards, he turned to me and he said, well, you're used goods now. And I dated that man for 8 years. Thank you guys, I'm Jeffrey J.